Welcome once again to another episode of the Traveling Troubadour, the podcast that follows around the lives of musicians who've successfully toured around the world playing the music everyone knows and loves. I'm your host, Jason Perno, and our next guest comes all the way from Athens, Greece. His name is Socratis, believe it or not. I've known Socratis for almost 20 years. He's a good friend of mine. Socratis, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. It's good to have you here. Why don't you start off by telling the audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you first got into music?
I was born and raised in Athens. Basically, I grew up, through the 70s and the 80s, as a teenager. Athens in general, it was a great place to grow up. Like my first exposure to music was probably through my parents' tapes. I mean, you're looking at 70s now. So, my dad being in the merchandise marine, he would bring all these tapes from all over the world. So like my parents, they had this drawer full with tapes. I would sneak in there and, find tapes that looked cool, anything from like Pat Boone, to, I remember they had like an ABBA tape. All kinds of weird stuff, man. Stuff like
I was going to say, I bet that's not the only thing you found in your dad's sock drawer. But
well, we're talking music now, right?
Well, you said that you were traveling around. Your dad was traveling around, right?
Yeah.
And he collected all this stuff from around the world and just brought it back with him. Cool.
And then after that, I mean, I was blown away by by this thing. Music, it was so fascinating to listening to all the different kinds of music, from these tapes, So
when you were listening to music back then, I mean, what were your influences? Do you have any specific bands or artists that really had a huge impact on you?
Not in the beginning, man. Like I said, I was basically listening to what was around. My parents. You
were just in love with music.
I was just so fascinating from music that I was, I would listen to basically anything, and then, when the radio shows, when I started recording, then I kind of, realized what I liked and what I didn't like. Like the first genre of music that I was really attracted to was, heavy music,
Yeah.
Like, obviously heavy, when you think 1983, 84, like it was, Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and Scorpions and Dio and all that, 80s, early 80s stuff.
Yeah, I grew up with
so
the
that
same.
I was definitely, I can promise, 100%. I was like the typical metalhead, with I still am.
Yeah, with the Slipknot shirt. Yeah. Yeah, cool. How did you end up going from living in Greece to first getting out and going to see other countries? What was your breakthrough that got you out of Greece?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, I was always, even when I was very young, I always had this, this desire, and this kind of dream to actually get out there and see the rest of the world. Because I realized that the music that I was listening to, it was coming from the West. So for me, it was like I gotta get out of Greece and go and see, where this music is made. And meet the people who are making it,
Right.
I was very young, right? So, but the first time I went out of Greece, it was probably when I went to the US to study in 92.
What did you study?
I studied guitar in Musicians Institute. It's like a private school in Hollywood, California.
Oh, so you were all the way on the West Coast.
Yeah, man. Actually, I first flew to the East Coast because I have family from my dad's side. I have, tons of cousins and stuff in Kingston, New York.
Yeah, you know what? I grew up an hour away from Kingston.
Where?
I mean, there's in a place called Liberty, New York, which is
okay.
Yeah, and I mean, so
wow.
There's a chance that I might have bumped into one of your family members at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a small world,
Yeah.
man. Absolutely. So yeah, I flew to the East Coast and I stayed there for like a month, and then I flew to the West Coast and stayed there for about a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half.
See, I never even knew that
Uh,
about you.
yeah, there you go, man. We know each other for 20 years plus,
Yeah.
and this, yeah. So yeah, I flew over to LA, and I stayed there for about a year and a half, and I studied at Musicians Institute, GIT, or
Yeah.
it's whatever you want to call it. And that was, I mean, for me, I was 20 years old, man. I mean, I was not even 21. I had to fake my ID so I can get into bars and stuff.
Right, just so you could
because I
have
was
a
like,
beer.
yeah, because when I got there and I was like, you can't go in the bar. I was like, what? Yeah, man. So anyway, so for me that was groundbreaking. To be there and study, all these major, great artists, guitar players and bass players and jam, and that was unbelievable. When I graduated from MI in '94, I was a different person, basically. It really changed me.
So how did you end up then? I mean, because we met in Europe. We met in Scandinavia. Yeah. How'd you end up there?
Oh, that's another story. I'll take you a little bit back. After I graduated from MI in '94, I immediately started playing, in bands and professionally. And then around '95, my friend Manos, Manos,
yes.
Yeah. He told me, hey man, I got this gig, in one of the it was a small bar basically. And they don't have space for a band, but we could go the two of us. I'm like, how do you mean? Well, just two guitars. I'm like, two guitars? I mean, well, yeah, just we can give it a try, see how it goes. So we started this thing, playing as a duo, two guitars. I mean, I wasn't really singing at the time. Maybe I was like singing one song or something, two songs.
Yeah.
Manos was doing most of the singing. So we started playing as a duo, and then, we were getting more and more gigs in Athens. In 96, was it 96 or 97? I'm not sure. I think 97. We got this gig in Rhodes Island, Rhodos.
Yes.
I think you've been there. Yeah. So we got this gig in Rhodos Island, playing for a Swedish bar for the whole season. From May until September,
I noticed that there was a very common thing back, because I played on Kos Island.
Yeah.
I've also played on Mykonos a little bit.
Mm.
And I see sometimes a lot of Scandinavians will like to go to the Greek islands and open up a tapas bar or something like that, and they'll have live music and I've seen that quite a few times. So you actually, when you started out playing as a solo or a duo, you were back in Greece.
I started playing as a solo much later.
Much later.
Like
okay. So you started out as a duo, playing back in Greece. You met some Swedish people in Rhodes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was not, they were not Swedish, they were like Greek Swedish,
Okay.
They were Greeks basically living in Sweden, and they had this bar called Modesty Bar. Great place, lots of fun. We had lots of fun. We played there for 2 years, 97 and then 98. So we were playing as a duo, as I said, one acoustic and one electric, and then we would switch, right?
Yeah.
So I would play the electric, and then Manos would play the acoustic, and then vice versa. So we did that for a couple of years, and then what happened was at the end of the second season, we met a couple of other guys in Rhodos, and believe it or not, one of them was actually Doc. Doc.
Yeah.
Doc was playing with another guy from Australia called Graham, and we were hanging out with these guys, and they told us that you should go and check out Copenhagen, because there's a big music scene there, for duos and stuff like that. So we kept that thought sort of, and at the end of the season, Manos met a Danish girl. My friend Manos, he met a Danish girl, and she invited him to Copenhagen.
As so many.
Yeah, I know, man. There's always a woman. There's always a woman.
Yes.
So to make a long story short, he was like, man, she invited me to Copenhagen, and I'm thinking about going. I'm like, dude, that's a bit far away, isn't it? Because I mean, like I said, we were basically playing in Greece, at the time.
Yeah.
So actually, Manos did go to Copenhagen, and huge coincidence, man. When he went to Copenhagen, he actually went to the Old English pub because Graham and Doc, the guys that we met in Rhodes, right? They told him to go there and look for a guy called Tom Dykes. So actually, no, but listen, it's getting better.
It's kind of like finding Where's Waldo.
Yeah. So Manos actually went to the Old English and he walked into the Old English pub, and there was Tom, playing, and like, hey, Manos was like, hey man, blah blah blah, I got your contact from a couple guys that we met in Rhodes, blah blah. And Tom was like, wait a minute, I know you. I know you from somewhere. Did you say you were playing in Rhodes? Were you playing with another guy with long hair? That was me. I had long hair at the time. He was like, Manos was like, yeah. Well, I've seen you guys. I've seen you guys play. So Tom. I mean, Tom,
yeah,
right?
he was in Rhodes though. He saw you guys.
He was playing at a cocktail bar just across the street from our gig.
Okay.
So like Tom told Manos that like he would walk to his gig practically every afternoon and listen to us playing Sultans of Swing.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, I know you guys. I've heard you guys. And then Tom told Manos that, you should, if you want, you can come over and here in Copenhagen and work for me if you want. So Manos called me up and he told me the story. I'm like, dude, are you sure? I mean, to go all over there, Copenhagen, and then, the gig is not what we expected and blah, blah, and then what are we going to do? We're going to be stuck there. And Manos was like, no, everything looks pretty legit. It's very organized. The bars are really nice. And this guy, Tom, he sounds very professional. So to finish the story, November of 98, we had one suitcase and two guitars. We flew from Athens to Copenhagen. And our first gig was at the Baron of the Baroness. That was November of 98. I remember it clear, like it was yesterday, man.
Wow. I think what's interesting about when the skepticism that you had about going to Copenhagen, I almost want to say it's like a little bit of a Greek, personality coming through because you're so used to in Greece. You meet all kinds of people there, and I know I've worked in Greece, and I got stiffed a number of times working for Greek bar owners and stuff. So the Greek in you is like thinking like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be like this or that, because the Scandinavians are pretty straight up, honest
absolutely.
People, and so, but
100%.
But from the mindset of a person living and working in Greece, you always have your caution lights on.
Yeah, because the first thing that came to my mind was like, what happens if we get screwed up, and we're gonna end up like, with two guitars and a suitcase out in the street.
Yeah, but I mean, when I was in Kos, I had a gig for 1 month, and 10 days before the gig ended, the guy just closed the bar down. Didn't even tell me. It was just like, wow.
Yeah, typical. Yeah, well,
I was stuck on the island with nothing to do. I had a. Yeah. I was, they let me stay in the hotel and everything, but for the rest of the month, I was just like, what am I going to do? Except, hook up with some random girl that works at McDonald's or something. Yeah. But, so where did you go from there? Where else have you played?
Ooh, man, I've pretty much played everywhere in North Europe, everywhere from Iceland, where my ex-wife comes from, to Germany, Finland, all the Scandinavian countries,
Yeah.
I've played in Germany a few times. That was great. I have great memories from that.
Did you ever play in that Strecker's bar in Berlin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Are we gonna tell stories about that?
Well, that was one of my favorite gigs. I'll just say that.
Absolutely.
That one
Absolutely.
and Switzerland. I don't know if you've ever made it to Schweizerhof.
Well, no, not I got offered the job a few times, but I kind of just never kind of worked out. I was busy doing other stuff, Miles did that gig a few times.
Yeah, it's a great gig when you're young. Now it's tough. I mean, 6-7 days a week in a smoky bar. I mean, that was normal back then, but these days, forget it.
Oh yeah, it was fun to smoke back then, man. I literally have pictures of me with a cigarette in my mouth, playing the gig.
Out of all the places that you played, do you have a specific place that you really, really prefer or enjoy, or anything that really sticks out as one of the best places? I mean, for me, it was Switzerland. That was probably the best place.
If I had to choose one place, probably I would say Norway.
Norway.
You know why? I mean, I did a few gigs with with my buddy Kevin Freeman. Kevin?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we had like a country band. Up until recently, the bass player passed away. So we went to Norway a few times, and man, I got to tell you, I mean, that's probably the best gigs that I've had in a long time. The reaction of the crowd. I mean, the Norwegians are crazy about country music, and they love the country, and Credence and country and
just all
everything,
the live stuff,
all American stuff. They love it, So that's probably I would say Norway.
It's funny that you mentioned Norway as well, because I just had an interview with another musician from Bulgaria, and he was telling me that one of his dreams when he was a kid growing up in Bulgaria was to go to Norway and play music in a band, because back in those days, Norway had music 7 days a week, all the time, everywhere, and it was all full bands, live bands, and people would go there and make tons of money and then come back home. He says it's not like that anymore, but it seems like still the sentiment is still there. I know I've done a number of gigs in Norway, and you go in there, first of all, they pay the best out of all the places in Europe, pretty much.
That is correct.
But it's also very expensive to live there. But the audience, the crowd response, the feedback you get, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, I felt like they treated me like family. When we got treated perfect. Like we played it. We played a few times there, but the last one that I remember was like a festival, the Riverside Festival, something like that. I can't remember. It's been many years. So they gave us like a house to live, and I mean the whole treatment was just fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I played in a place where they put me up in a hotel that Norwegian royalty stay in sometimes. They gave me free tickets to see a play. They took me up on one of those cable cars up into the mountains and everything. And I mean, this is stuff that all costs money, and they were just treating me to this and just, here, try a Norwegian meal, which wasn't, I mean, Norwegian food isn't that great, but the fact that they were paying for it and they were, the hospitality, I think that's what I wanted to say. It's just second to none there.
Yeah, you feel like that you're treated as an artist. You're a big shot or something.
They do. You're somewhat like a celebrity or something important over there. Do you? Now, what about Iceland? You had mentioned that you played out there, and I've never heard anybody talk about the gigs in Iceland.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was married to an Icelandic for 10 years.
Yeah.
So one of the many times that I was up there, I did a couple of gigs. You know, I mean, Iceland is a small place.
There's like
right?
300,000 people in the country or something like
Not
that.
even that. It's 200. You know, I mean, 260, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, for anything foreign, immediately becomes, you know, kind of like, you know, exotic.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean,
Yeah.
right? So I did a couple gigs at a local place, you know,
Right.
close to my ex-wife's parents.
So like bodega type places.
No,
Or
not really bodega, but you know, yeah, more like a local
town bars and
yeah,
stuff.
a small version of the old Irish pub.
Right.
Let's
Right.
just say.
Okay. You know, talking about the troubadour lifestyle, what is it that you love the most about what we do?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's even just the thing that you play guitar and sing for a living. I mean, you know, when I tell that to people, they're like, and you live of that? Like, you know, it's like can you make a living doing that? Only that? What do you mean you don't have a day job? No, you know.
I think that was one of the things that really used to get to me. I mean, my own parents included. They would say, you know, when are you going to get a job? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I have a job. This is what I do. I've been traveling all around, getting paid good money, more money than what most average Americans are making. And when you take into account the fact that your accommodations are paid for, your food is paid for, and all the money that you're saving, you're making really, really good money at that point. You're not rich by any means, and you're not up there with celebrities or anything like that, but you're doing what you love, you're making good money, and you get to travel around and see the world. And I don't see what's wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Well, you know, when it kind of changes, the older we get, the older I get, at least it changes. You know, like now I appreciate, like, you know, like I said, you know, I appreciate the fact that you know, when I say I go to work, you know, I just take my guitar and my mic, or, you know, whatever, my gear, and I go and play songs. You know, another thing that I like is that the fact that, you know, it leaves you plenty of time to do other stuff. Right, you don't have this like 9 to 5.
Yeah, you're working half a day basically.
You're basically making more money working, you know, like a weekend than than a guy has to work, you know, let's say 10 days, you know, or whatever, a week to make the same money, you know.
Absolutely.
So well, not now with the corona situation, but like under normal circumstances, I do between 150 and 180 gigs per year. Average, right? So you know, I mean, basically it's one gig every 2 days or something like that, you know. So you know, it's just like any other job, you know, basically.
All right, so you talked about all the positive things that you like about being a traveling musician. Obviously there are a lot of perks. Is there anything in particular that you don't like about the job?
Basically, you have to set your mind, and you have to deal with people who are drunk. You know, like you walk into your job, you walk into your gig, and people are already, you know, pissed. And for a person like me, who, I mean, I hardly drink. You know, I mean, I was never much of a drinker, even when I was younger. You know, so you know, it took few years to actually, you know,
get used to that.
To cope, get used to that,
build up some tolerance. I just want to say it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I totally left that aspect out in my book. I'm talking about the drawbacks, and you're absolutely right. You know, drunk people.
Because, like, you know, for example, it's, you know, let's say it's Friday, you know, it's Friday night, Friday afternoon, you're kind of, you know, hanging out at home, watching TV or whatever. And all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's, you know, 8 o'clock. You got to make yourself, you got to put your mind into gig mode, right? So you got to put on your clothes, you know, take a shower, whatever. And then like in an hour, all of a sudden from the couch, you're in a bar where people are, you know, like they're pissed drunk. So like think about that. I mean, for like a normal person, that's like what what.
Yeah, I mean, you just basically you wake up late, you have your breakfast somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. Or you're like, you'll eat a quick dinner and then you go out, you're just going to your job, doing your thing, and then you walk in and this bar is just full of people. It's like an explosion of noise and drunkenness and everything. You're not there to drink and hang out with those people. You're there to entertain them. So
exactly. That's I would say that's the hardest part of all. And like I said, it took me years to kind of learn, how to actually do that.
Especially
to be able to.
I just want to say, especially coming from another culture where it's not as tolerated. No. I know as an American, one of the things that I was just shocked by, especially in Scandinavia, is just their tolerance for public intoxication, because the way that the Danes act, or other parts of Scandinavia, maybe the Finnish are pretty bad too. Is that the way they behave, to me, was the way that Americans might behave on a college campus on the weekends, the way the kids act, but instead it's the entire country. It's on the weekend. And then you see stuff happen that you just roll your eyes at. It's bad enough if you see a guy like whipping his schlong out and start pissing on the street, but it's another thing when you see a drunk girl lifting up her skirt and squatting to pee right in the middle of an intersection while screaming at the top of her lungs, getting as much attention as she can. I've seen that happen a number of times here. It's just the weirdest thing to me.
Dude, I got to tell you, man, like talking about that, and coming from a time like when we first got here in late 90s, the conditions of the conditions regarding the gigs, they were not even as close as good as they are now. I mean, now you go to your gig and there's a stage waiting for you there. Like there's top class equipment. There's a fence. There's lights. Everything a professional musician needs to have to be able to perform. Right back in those years, there was, I mean, you remember, it was nothing. There was just like, hey, man, where do we play? Oh, right there in the corner.
Yeah, and the whole night it was a fight to make sure you didn't get your teeth knocked out.
That was exactly what I wanted to tell you. The first night that we got here in Denmark in '98, I remember it because it was the first night we were playing at the Baron. We just landed in Denmark and we were playing at the Baron and the Baroness. Me and Manus. So, we set up, you remember the piano they had, like in the corner? Yeah. So we set up next to the piano. There was no stage. There was nothing, we were just playing on the floor, basically, So the first night, a large group of Swedes walking to the bar, they were drunk and they were loud, So, I mean, we didn't know, So we started playing, and all of a sudden, there was I don't remember, a girl or somebody, of course, kicked the microphone stand right on my teeth. Yeah. The first night, I got blood. I was like, fuck, shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard of one of the musicians, I don't know who it was, that actually got a tooth knocked out during one of those gigs.
Probably.
And it was a big fight to get the venue to pay for it, because the guy who's running those places at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so what I was telling you is that the conditions regarding the gigs now, they are, I mean, we're like rock stars compared to back in those days where there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like I remember literally playing on J-Day on, whatever the hell I was playing on the floor.
Yeah.
And every night it was, and it was like the whole night was just basically fighting to keep your teeth in place, because people are, how it is. People were dancing and you were like, oh shit, oh man, are they going to kick the mic now? Or,
I guess the whole process has matured over the years. And,
yes,
not only are we in a better environment to work in, but we're also getting paid better wages. I mean, back then they had us working 6-7 days a week for the same amount of money you can make in a week than now doing gigs.
Well, yeah, but also, yes, you're absolutely right. But the thing is that the gigs were also very different back then. Like I remember, we like you had the freedom to play whatever the hell you wanted, basically. If it was a slow song or a medium tempo song or a fast tempo, you could play whatever. Well, now of course we're getting paid. We're getting paid with better money. But of course we're asked. There are certain rules that we have.
There's
you
expectations.
There are huge expectations.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I understand that. If I was the employer, I would also have expectations from the people that I employ.
Yeah, they're paying you to sell beer. That's the thing.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah.
Do you have any specific life tips or lessons that you've learned over the years that you think a new troubadour just getting on the scene would benefit from?
Yeah. Well, the first one is, be careful with the booze and the drugs and all that stuff.
That's a big one.
Because I've seen with my own eyes. I've been in this business almost 30 years. I started in '94, right?
Yeah.
So what is it, 2000? Yeah. I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen people dying. Quite a few actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that I found that whenever I was drunk and my performance basically sucked. So if I can give one advice to the younger kids is the first one is be careful with the drinking and all that stuff, and the second one is try to be organized as much as possible. Like because when you're a traveling musician, you have to think in advance. Like there are a lot of things that can go south. So you have to always be prepared. With your gear.
I think you're right, absolutely right. Because as musicians, a lot of them by nature tend to be lazy. A lot of them don't want to put in the normal work that you would have to do in any job, let alone as a musician.
Yeah.
But just because you're a musician doesn't mean that you don't have to be responsible and make sure that there are responsibilities. There are things that you have to do, especially if you want to progress with your career.
Yes, absolutely. With me, it was never like. I even when I was younger, I was always very. I would say even up to an OD level, I was always very careful and very organized, especially with my gear. I was always, I would always show up at the gig and, I knew that for sure that my gear is working 100%. And, I knew my songs and I knew my parts or whatever, if I was playing with a band or whatever, and especially when I'm traveling, I always have like a backup of everything pretty much, even a small mixer. I always carry a small mixer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like I have it. Yeah. Well, I have a box in the car that has a couple of mics, few cables, a mixer, and some tools. Because when you're out in the middle of nowhere and things start to go south, there's no one to help you. You only have yourself.
Speaking of gear, is there anything particular that you like to use? Not just backup stuff, but just particular pieces of equipment that you found very useful to have.
Yeah, well, as far as the solo gigs, like, or the pub gigs, I have a pretty basic setup. First of all, my guitar. I'm using thin line guitars. I've been playing a Line 6 Variax guitar for about 3 years, and now it's been about a year that I have switched to an LTD L6 thin body guitar, which is great. I love it, So that's my main guitar, and then I run that through a I have a Boss GT1 effects processor, which is great. I love it. It has all the effects that I need, and more. And from that, I go to a Digitech German stereo looper that I have a few drum loops, drum loops, and I do very little looping during those gigs because the majority of the gigs that we do, the people are they're not really there to listen to music, and they're not there to listen to me or anybody else, playing guitar or So I keep it very simple, but it's nice to have the looper for some very short looping, and then I do a lot of overdubs, and also like I said, I have a few drum loops, and then from that I have a TC Helicon harmony singer pedal for the vocals. It has a reverb and some other vocal effects, and also has harmonies. So that's it, man. Basically 3 pedals, and it's that big. It fits into a suitcase.
All right. Do you have a pedal board, or do you?
Yeah, it's like a pedal board. It's that big. Yeah. It's not bigger than that.
So what are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, since the pandemic, it's been a year now that we're kind of stuck home. I'm excuse me. I haven't, with the bands, we have stopped rehearsing for a few months now. So basically, I've spent a lot of time here in my home studio recording music, and I also record for other people. I do a lot of, people send me songs, and I record guitars or bass or even vocals.
Cool. Are you on any of those websites like Sound Better or these places like Fiverr where people pay you to lay a track? No, but I will check it out now that you mentioned it. Well, I was on Sound Better, so and I've gotten a couple of vocal gigs through that website. It's worked out for me. But so you're recording stuff at home, right?
Yeah, I record. I do that, and I also have I have 2 children. I have 2 boys, 15 and 13 years old. Teenage boys. I spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And then man, basically just hanging out, basically trying to keep my head together, so we can see the light at the other side of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's been tough for a lot of musicians this year, and not just musicians like us, but the big stars and entertainers.
Oh,
It's hit everyone, but I'm hoping that by the summertime things will start to get back to normal. But
cross the fingers, man.
Yeah. But before we get into one of your original songs, I just wanted to ask you, you have any funny stories to share? Just like one good story from all those years touring? I know there's a million. It's hard to choose from, but if there's just one you can think of.
Yeah. Well, most of the funny stories have explicit material, so I'm going to skip those. Well, if I could think of one, I would probably take you many years back when I was still in Rhodos. I don't remember if it was 94. I think it was 96. I was playing in this house band for a rock club there called the Sticky Fingers. Great place. So I was a heavy drinker back then, and that is actually one of the reasons why I, that story that I'm about to tell you. That's actually one of the reasons why I kind of stopped. Drinking. Yeah. We were drinking heavy back in those years. I was like 24.
Yeah.
And we were playing every night, and it was all rock and roll, Metallica and Guns N' Roses and, great stuff. We had a really good, really cool band. So one night, we were playing and they were buying us the shots, so it was, so by the end of the night, towards the end of the night, I was so pissed. I was so drunk. So, I had like really long hair, like almost up to my waist.
Yeah.
So, we were playing, and, I was like, getting into it, and I was, doing a little bit of headbang, and all of a sudden, like the hair was, in my face. So I tried to do like this, when you have long hair. And I did, and all of a sudden, like the whole universe just started to turn around like this. So I just felt, like I felt on my amp.
Wow.
And there was a beer on my amp, so the beer spilled all over the amp, and my guitar was going like,
feedbacking
and feedbacking, and the amp just went, and of course, I was in the middle of the set, right? I think it was towards the end of the set. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember there was people, like the people were going like, "What is this, a part of the show or something?" Like. So I kind of, the bass player, who was like the boss, right? So he kind of helped me up. I was like, So I was out. I was out. And so what happened was the next day, when I woke up, whatever time it was, and we used to have this place where we would go and have coffee, like around midday. So I got up, and with whoever girl was with me at the time, I can't remember. So we drove there. I had a motorcycle. We drove there, and man, I swear to you, as soon as I walked into the place, I could see people were going like, they were like. And I was so embarrassed.
Wow.
I realized that drinking and playing, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
It makes me look stupid.
And sometimes it takes a couple of times before you finally get it through your head. That's
the hard way. It was the hard way for me.
And I never really drank much. You know me, like I was never a huge drinker. Not really my thing. I had other vices, but alcohol wasn't one of them. And but the interesting thing, like I have two stories in particular that was just it for me. One was when I first came to Europe, I had ended up in Berlin, and of course the bar was owned by a Dane, and he had Danish people running the bar. And the inspector
was that Strecker?
Yeah, Strecker's in Berlin, and this guy named Henrik, I believe his name was, and he kept feeding me vodka Red Bulls. Like, this is before that stuff was illegal to serve together, and he kept feeding me this after the gig, and then I went to the bathroom, and I passed out on the floor in the toilet. And then at some point, the owner of the bar came in, and he saw me there, and then I guess like he went and told the inspector that your musician, I think he's passed out in the toilet, and they just let me sleep there until like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then they kicked me out eventually when the place closed down. And the second story I had was actually in Copenhagen several years later, where they kept feeding me Fishman's. That stuff that's like Fishman's Friend, and
that's horrible.
Yeah, I got so drunk there, somebody had to escort me to a taxi, and I remember like the taxi dropped me off in front of the musician's flat, and I stepped out of the taxi, and I never made it inside. Like I just crashed on the sidewalk, and woke up with somebody like nudging me, going, "Are you okay?" And I had like green vomit stuck to the side of my face from the Fishman's. And so like and like the hangover was so bad that I don't even remember the next day at all, like what happened there. I just remember that waking up on the sidewalk and having my face stuck to the vomit on the side. That was it for me. I was like, yeah,
man, it's not pleasant. The next day, it's like, well, honestly, I don't want to sound like a preacher or believe me, I have drunk my booze, and I have done all the stuff, but I was always a social drinker. Like I would drink when I was partying. right?
Yeah.
Like you would never see, even when I was like 20 years old, you would never see me, home, drinking. There was no point. Plus, in Greece we have a very different culture as regarding the alcohol. It's a very social thing, and it's not like the purpose of the evening, to get wasted.
Right.
You get wasted, but that's not like the purpose. While here, when people go out, as
they're on a mission.
That is kind of, they're on a mission. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and
thank you for having me.
Podcast.
I had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many other things we could have brought up, but I want to keep this podcast clean.
Sure.
But
yeah.
For those people who are listening, we have a song that you had just been working on recently. It's an instrumental, right? It's called Homebound, it's right?
Homebound, yeah. Well, I got this. As we've been stuck home for almost a year now. So I've been working on this instrumental project. I have a few songs that I've been working on, and that one was the first one that came out. And I got, I heard that melody. I think I heard it on the TV. I had the TV on, and it was like from a commercial or something, and so I got this melody, and I kind of changed it. So that's basically what the song is coming from. But and Homebound is because we're home.
We're bound home. During COVID.
We're bound home. Either if we want it or not. So that's basically. But basically, as I told you, I started singing much later. So like the first music that I was actually involved with was actually instrumental. So that's I kind of went back to my roots with this little project.
Cool. Well, that about wraps it up for this week's edition of Traveling Troubadour. I want to thank once again our guest Socratis for coming on the show to share his story with us. If you like what you've heard and you want to learn more, please go to Amazon and pick up your copy of Troubadour, a musician's guide to touring Europe as a cover artist. We're going to take you out with Socrates' latest single, an instrumental called Homebound. Thanks once again, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.